Hi, this is Marckx. Welcome to Good Intentions and Bad Outcomes, a podcast about challenges and practices you might encounter in the workplace, where good intentions have unintended and often unnoticed bad consequences. I'm Gino, as I said.
And I'm Wayne.
Welcome, Wayne. Every time we share a situation that we or one of our listeners have encountered in the workplace that is challenging in some way, we discuss the what and the why, and we try to come up with alternatives on the spot. So let's get started. Now we have something that is fresh from the press. We are today, Monday, October 20th, and half of the world is impacted by an outage in AWS, an outage of a cloud infrastructure. And obviously, it has a whole bunch of consequences for a lot of services, including many that we are using. So I think it's something that feels we need to talk about today. So Wayne, let me frame because we talked about it a tiny bit before we got started. Let me frame why I think there is some what the intent is there and what we are trying to explain, and then we can take it from there. So a lot of applications where we used to historically have data centers and hosting our own applications, we kind of wanted to move away from that and wanted to make sure that our the resilience and our ability to keep on serving our clients increased by ensuring that we had some kind of a flexible underlying infrastructure that would scale as needed, that would fail over as needed, and so forth. Completely unbeknownst to the person actually using it or the application using it. That's what happened. That's what we are doing. This is why we are moving to the cloud, to ensure that without needing to pay attention to those kinds of things, that they are taken care of, right? So it's kind of separation of responsibilities, if you will, of the infrastructure and the application logic. That's obviously the intent behind it. Would you say, Wayne, that's really the intent behind the migration to cloud infrastructure?
Well, you make a good point, because I've always worked with organizations who thought it was a good idea to move to cloud, and they often pour lots of time and money into doing a cloud migration. It's been a big thing for lots of people and lots of organizations. So there's got to be some good intention in it. And I think, as you mentioned, one of the best intentions is that we're having a more consistent underlying structure, so that we've got the infrastructure that is always available. We've got the infrastructure that scales well when we need it. It's always on. It's never down. And those are honorable intentions. Those are good intentions. You'd want to do that for sure. I know some organizations have sometimes questioned that. Is it, can we have more control over on-prem services as opposed to cloud? Might we have more secure on-prem services as opposed to cloud? Could it be cheaper if we do it ourselves as opposed to cloud? And I remember at one organization I was at, we actually went through a costing scenario where we tried to price out what it, to provide our services with servers in-house. Could we do it cheaper on cloud? It on paper looked like it was going to be quite a bit cheaper. So a great intention would be to have more reliable service at a cheaper rate.
Right. So that's another one. But even if you're concerned about, let's not go into the details about what cloud infrastructure is and how to use it and so forth. But cloud, you could choose to set up a cloud within your own infrastructure on your own data, in your own data servers or data rooms, so that you wouldn't have that issue, right? If you have your own infrastructure, you can still expose that infrastructure using basically a cloud layer, and as a result, get all the benefits that you would from a public use of a public cloud infrastructure like Azure, like AWS, like the Google infrastructure as well. There's quite a few out there. But what happened though is a lot of those services went down. So why did they go down now? I mean, I know the answer, so it's definitely not a clean question. But why did it go down?
Well, to tell you the truth, I'm not quite sure why they went down.
Okay, so let
Something
me.
happened, and all of a sudden, stuff stopped working.
No, I'm not. I'm not talking about Amazon itself, right? I'm talking about the
Okay.
services that use Amazon as their cloud infrastructure. So why they go down is because they are reliant on a single cloud provider, right?
Right.
And
Right.
they do
No more
not
failure.
have, they don't have the ability to reroute to another provider as soon as something with that provider really happens, right? So you still have a single point of failure, even though your entire intent to move to the cloud was to no longer have that single point of failure, which would be your hardware, your box, right?
Yeah.
That you're
Yeah.
actually running your application on. So
Right.
you have moved that away. And a lot of those reasons, indeed, will no longer cause, or a lot of those things that could happen in your physical infrastructure would no longer cause your application to go down. But because you're reliant on a single cloud provider, you still have the same issue. You still have a single point of contact or a single point of failure, and that is less likely to go down. But if it does, you're still equally impacted, right? So, so that's kind of what is happening there. Now there are ways
But
around this, as you know, Wayne. But yeah, you were
yeah,
saying something first, so let's explore that.
I was just going to say that I think in most organizations that move off to the cloud also move the assumption that there is redundancy in the cloud infrastructure that they're moving to. So,
Yeah,
like
that's a fair
you know,
assumption because that's how it's
right?
sold.
Yeah, yeah. So typically, right? So,
Mhm.
I don't want to have all my server rooms go down when there's a power outage. So I move them off onto the cloud because it's distributed across all, a vast geographic area. And if there's a power outage in one area, then, the power in another area will make up for it, and I'll see that redundancy. So, to me,
Yeah,
it makes sense. It's a good intention. It makes sense to move to the cloud so that you do get that redundancy, except
right.
when you don't.
Right. So, and the whole point then is that you still are relying on a single source, and that's
Right.
kind of what the challenge is. So, if you want to get to this anti-fragility where you can easily and quickly recover from those kinds of situations, you got to make sure that you have a backup plan, right? And that backup is best implemented constantly instead of it being triggered when something goes wrong. So a backup plan would be that you work with multiple cloud systems at once and that you ensure that your services are spread across them. So I can tell you a story about that as well. In the past, we were still working with those big batteries in case there was some power failure. There was a critical, everything was on those batteries. I don't even know what they're called anymore, but I'm sure somebody could remind me. But everything was actually behind that safety, or what was covered by that safety blanket, if you will. The power failure indeed happened. All of the screens were still on. All of the computers and the servers were still running, but the router wasn't. So as a result, we didn't have any access to any of the systems from the outside of the building as well. Same thing is happening here. You got to make sure that these services, those critical services, are spread across those multiple cloud systems too, to ensure that you have availability when one of them goes down, right? And it's very unlikely. I mean, it still can happen, of course, theoretically, that let's say you're on Azure, you're on AWS, and you're on Google at the same time, that they all three go out. I mean, that's possible. There is a theoretical possibility that this happens. It's very unlikely. So, and there's only so much you can do, of course, to ensure high availability. So those are the kinds of things that you should be able to do. You still need to take ownership of, well, what happens if this thing goes down? Am I still impacted? Is that important enough for me? You might very well say, well, if Amazon goes down, we have bigger fish to fry. And that's fine, right? That's very well possible. It's if that is a choice that you're making from a business perspective, that is fine as well. But if you are a critical application and you want to make sure that these applications keep on running when one of those critical components is not available, well, then you have to make sure that you take reins into your own hands, right? And there are things you can, as I said, you can split across multiple different cloud systems. And then you have another challenge, because you talked about one benefit of moving to the cloud, Wayne, and that was to have an infrastructure that looks alike. It doesn't matter how you talk with it, how you engage with it, it looks like a cross. It's homogeneous. It's yeah,
Homogeneous.
homogenic. Yeah, homogeneous. That's what I wanted to say. Thank you, Wayne.
Yes.
Oh my God, coming out of a weekend is never a good idea to do these things. So so yeah, so exactly right. So so yeah, so the environment can be homogeneous. Instead of, so you could build this yourself if you really want to, but there are services out there as well that actually enable you to talk to various cloud providers through a common interface, right? And you're again adding this additional layer, but you adding this layer on your side then, right? I know a couple of tools. Yeah.
Would the layer then become the single point of failure?
There always is something, right? You're trying to mitigate it, but at least you control it yourself. And in that case, if that goes down, most likely there's something going to be wrong with your application as well, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm thinking one of the other factors too, back when we did that calculation at the company I was with at that time, the cost factor, I think you could probably have infinite redundancy if you had infinite funding. So,
yeah.
you know, spread it across 5 different cloud providers if you can afford it. And it's all a cost benefit analysis. How much uptime do I really need on this thing? And can I afford, does it make sense for me to spend the money to have that amount of uptime? It may not.
Yeah, that's the eternal question, right? How many nines do you want? Do you want 6 nines, which is 99.9999% uptime? I believe it translates to a couple of minutes per year that you have plant downtime. That's barely anything at all, right? Well, if you are a store where you can an online store where you can book a grooming appointment for your pet, for your dog or your cat, and that thing is not 6 nines, but is not available for a few hours a year, well, then that's might very well be sufficient, if not overkill already, right?
Right.
So, but on the other hand, if you are operating a medical service, or you are relying on, I don't know, like air traffic control or something like that, of course, you need to have higher availability, and it warrants the investment that you require in order to get that. So it all depends on your situation. This is why I said earlier on as well, if it's fine for you that if Amazon goes down, you're down, or that if Google goes down, that your application is down, then that's a choice that you're making, and that's totally acceptable.
Yeah,
that's totally acceptable depending on the kind of service you're providing.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
So, I mean, that's a pretty good discussion about some really good intentions moving to the cloud in order to avoid problems, but making sure that you do it in a way that really avoids those problems, because there's always something that gets in there and creates a bad outcome.
Yeah, you always have to think about what potential consequences can be. Okay, fantastic. So that was it for today. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. I did. It was very fresh, so it's kind of easy to talk about. If you have a situation at work or in the past or right now that you want us to talk through and that you feel have unintended bad outcomes, please let us know, and we might discuss it in one of our next sessions. Thank you so much, Wayne, and looking forward already to the next session.
Okay, thanks, Gino. Talk to you next time.
Bye-bye.